All right. Hey, happy Tuesday, my friends. How are you doing? I am so excited to spend another fantastic Tuesday with you. So, hopefully, you have sound and we're all going to be able to hear. Well, we're not going to be able to hear each other. This is quite a one-way conversation, but I will be able to see your comments. So, make sure as you join in, you say hello and let us know what's happening in your world today as you chime in. So I'm just giving folks a moment to arrive and hopefully you can all hear me. So definitely let me know that you're here and that you can hear me so we can get rolling with today's topic. And today we are talking about how to write a book that has longevity. So writing a book that people will be reading for years to come, something we haven't talked about before. So, hey, Ben, hey, Kevin, number two. So great to see you guys. I'm assuming you've got sound because nobody said, hey, your mouth's moving, but I can't hear you. So I'm operating under the assumption that you have audio. Hey, Kevin McGuire, it's great to have you here. We've got both Kevins here. All right, so that's what we're talking about today. As always, and Angela's here. Thank you for confirming that my audio is good. Appreciate that. So yeah, we're talking about how to write a book with longevity. And while we're waiting for folks to arrive, I'll just tell you, I've got a Instagram imposter. So if we're already friends on Instagram and you get another friend request from me today, it is not me. So I've changed my profile picture on Instagram. So it's a pink shirt. And you can also tell because my name is Julie Broad. There's no number. My imposter has a number after her name. So just a heads up if we're friends and I ask you to be my friend again. I haven't changed accounts. So somebody has decided to copy me and copy all my recent photos as well. So just a heads up on that. All right. And Brace, thank you so much for letting me know that you can hear me. And Ben's taken us on a walk. So thanks for that. Great to go on a walk with you. Randy Mack, hello. Great to have you here too. And we've got another Benjamin. Woohoo. All right. So, and Kevin number two is making a joke. Write a long book to have longevity. I think these days a long book is almost a certainty that it'll sit on someone's shelf for a long time, but there's no guarantee they're actually going to read it. And my husband has actually an example of that. He has a book. It's about John Cleese, actually, and we moved it 3 times. And I said, as we were packing up, putting everything in storage to come back to Canada, hiding from the virus, and I said, we're not moving that book again. That's it. That book is not going anywhere, but it's thick. I think it's been daunting. It's intimidated him, and he has not wanted to read it. All right. So I'm talking about writing a book that people are still reading 10 years from now. And that kind of almost sounds like a dream, but this topic was actually inspired by a conversation I had with a traditional publisher. About 10 days ago, we were talking about, some synergies, some things that they can help us with and some things that we can help them and their clients with, primarily because they don't do marketing for their clients. They just get the books into bookstores and then they expect their clients to do the marketing. And of course, we do a lot of marketing. So we were talking about those things. And they said that it's been interesting for them because one of their clients wrote a book 16 or 17 years ago, and he's mostly a motivational speaker. And he is still selling more than 1,000 copies of his book every single month. Some months it's as high as 3,000 to 5,000 copies of his book. And he's never updated it. He hasn't written a second book. And they just said, some people and some authors are able to create massive amounts of success and momentum from their book. And it actually kind of got me going down this road of, well, what makes a book have longevity in life for an author more than others? So that's where this topic got inspired from. And of course, if you don't already know, on my community channel on the YouTube page, I generally ask you guys what you want me to talk about in these live streams. So if you're wondering, or if you want to have your say in that, be sure to join that community tab. I usually post it after the live stream and then ask you what you want me to talk about in a couple of weeks and give you some topics. But I'm always open to suggestions because sometimes I'm not sure what we should chat about. So this was what you guys voted on. So talking about that, I was trying to come up with some examples. And so one of the things that came to mind was keto, the keto diet. And it may seem like it's here to stay, but once upon a time, everyone was all about paleo. And before that, Atkins. And before that, it was low fat. So some of these diet books do have staying power, and you can certainly point to certain ones that have been around for a long time. But a lot of cases, just like books about politicians or other trending topics, your book in those subject matter areas, it's harder to have a book that lasts a long, long time. And if you're writing about technology, oh my goodness, your book can lose relevance really, really fast, especially if you write about a specific type of software or a program. Even people writing about social media, they're faced with this challenge because what you can do on Facebook today, it can be eradicated before your book is even published because of an update. So a lot of these things are challenging to write about. The good news is when you write about something very specific, you have a very clear market and you are quite likely to sell a lot of books in a short period of time. However, that may be all the leverage you get out of that book. So generally speaking, I prefer clients and myself to write books with more life. Something that's not going to be out of date in 2 or 3 years, something that in 5 years, even 10 years, they can read and still get relevant. So I'm thinking, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Who Moved My Cheese, What to Expect When You're Expecting, The Power of Positive Thinking, The Secret, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Those are all really good examples of books that have stood the test of time. And now the first thing you'll probably notice that all of these books have in common is they're more of a way of thinking. They're more about humanity and our way, their strategy and approaches to life more than they are technical details. And really, even something like Rich Dad, Poor Dad is more mindset and strategy than it is actual tactical investment advice. So that's why Rich Dad, Poor Dad has had a lot of staying power too. So the first tip I have for you today, if you're thinking of writing a book that hopefully you can still be leveraging in your business and your brand 5, 10, 15, maybe even 16 years later, like this speaker that we were talking about, the first thing is to try to choose your topic. So it's really more about the way to think about the problem that you help people solve or how to strategically handle a situation, the humanity aspect of your business more than a specific tactical how-to book. Ultimately, books about the human condition, those are the ones that have staying power more than anything else. Now, as a consumer of books, I generally really prefer the tactical how-to because I'm looking to solve a very specific problem. So there is a market for this, but I'm just talking today about how to write a book that will last a long time. And I recommend you actually write several books and you have one in your arsenal, in your portfolio that you've written that has this staying power. So you've always got it there to fall back on. So let me just see what you guys are chatting about over here. Oh, Mike Hurd, you made it. So good to see you. Kevin McGuire says, I read the Venona Files or Venona Project. Can't remember which was the title. Very long book, very informative if you're into Cold War spy stuff. Awesome. And Crystal, hey, I'm so glad you're here. I haven't seen you in a little while. So yeah, if you're here, please do say hello. And you can always hit that thumbs up button because, honestly, I know it doesn't really mean a lot, but it still makes me feel good. So yeah, and if you've got questions about this or thoughts, go ahead and chime in. Of course, as always, we have participation prizes to encourage all of you to interact in the chat. So we'll be giving those away. And then as always, we also have our usual draw for everyone who's commented on the day a video is released. So new videos every Tuesday and Friday. So those of you listening to the replay, this counts. And when you comment the day a video is released, you'll be entered to win, of course, our fabulous book launcher swag. We've got our Oh So Soft journal and our famous hashtag No Boring Books mug where coffee, tea, and hot chocolate taste better in this mug, guaranteed. There's been so many testimonials proving that is true. So, and Lily Losh, thank you for sharing this information, Lily. Thank you for joining us. I don't think I've seen you here before, so it's really lovely to have you here today. Okay, so back into my point number 2. So actually, I don't know if I'm done with point number 1. So let's say you're a financial advisor. You could talk about the most popular funds or the current interest rates or stuff that's going on in the market right now, which is of value, but it will go out of date. Or you could write an investment philosophy book that will set somebody up to have the mindset to make the right investment choices. Both books, again, have value and will help your business grow, but the investment philosophy book should last a lot longer, especially if it remains to be your core approach and belief in that business. So the second thing I want to mention is or the second point is to really be careful of your pop culture references in the book. Um, Now I'll give you guys a couple. I'll give you guys a couple references, and you can tell me what show it's from. So, say your book referenced The Close Talker or Puffy Shirt or yada yada. Now, those may have seemed very safe references at the time because they seemed very timeless. However, those of you who work with folks under 30, you probably have discovered that those references no longer are valid. People under 30 don't always know what those references are for. So, what am I referencing when I'm talking about the close talker? Oh, I could have also said the soup Nazi. That's a personal favorite episode. So, when I'm talking about pop culture references, and that's what I'm referencing, what show am I referencing? Waiting for you guys. I'm waiting for somebody to know that reference. Come on. I know all of you aren't under 30. There, yay. Thank you, Dale, and welcome. So Dale got the reference, and Dale has all of the book launcher swag. So I'm actually going to give Benny Bullock the prize. Thanks for playing along. So Benny, as always, all you have to do is email us at team, and I think Angela will probably type this in, but I'll type it in right now too. Maybe I should just leave it to the pros. So team@booklaunchers.com, and let us know if you want the mug or the journal. Thanks for playing along. And maybe if you win again, Dale, I'm going to get you to nominate who gets your prize in your place. So I'm warning you now, so you're not getting put on the spot. Okay. So let's say, so just going back to that pop culture. So it was Seinfeld. And so I know quite a few books that would reference, I think in a lot of my writing, one point I was referencing Game of Thrones because that seemed like everybody knew what you were talking about. And even if they didn't watch the show, they still knew what you were talking about. But when you're trying to write a book that's timeless, you really should try to avoid those pop culture references because they won't stand the test of time. So rather than, let me give you an example. So if I was trying to use a reference or an example to reference influence. So rather than, the difference between, persuading somebody to come to their own conclusion, but it's the conclusion you want versus brute force and just demanding that they come to that conclusion. I could take a current reference of the show Billions, if anybody watches that. It's one of my personal favorites. So I could, illustrate that this is Chuck Rhodes versus Bobby Axelrod and use that as an example. But that's going to go out of style, especially because I think this is season 6 we're watching. It's probably not going to last that much longer. So it won't be too long. And there's probably a whole bunch of people that don't watch that show. So a better thing might be to use a fable. And one of my personal favorites, and there's lots of fables, you can look them up or you can make up your own even, but The Wind and the Sun. And the wind and the sun are hanging out, and they're both arguing about who's the mightier power. And then they decide to place a bet to determine who actually is the mightier power. And they see a farmer down in the field, and the wind says, "Oh, let's make a bet, and this will decide who is the mightier power. Whoever can get that farmer to take his coat off first wins." And so the wind begins blowing and blowing and blowing. And the farmer actually ends up resisting and taking his jacket off, zips it up, pulls it tight, and wraps his arms around himself. So the wind, with his brute force, did not succeed. And the sun just kind of laughs and goes, "I got this," and just starts shining a little brighter on the farmer. And the farmer wipes a brow. And pretty soon, before you know it, farmer unzips his jacket and takes it off. So that is a way, and timeless, to illustrate the same point of kind of brute force versus having somebody come to their own conclusion when they're taking action. So you can use fables or made up stories. You could use historical figures because those aren't going to go out of date either. Stories, that have been passed on by generation to generation to keep a book more timeless. And of course, your own personal stories, because as long as you're not putting a reference point. So one of the things on the book I'm working on that was flagged for me was me referencing the age of my son, because that it's okay to reference my son, but if I reference, and I can say when my son was a baby, but I don't want to say, I have at the time when I was writing, I have an 18-month-old, which tells you how much of a delay I've had on my book with everything that's been going on. But for those of you who know, I have a 3-year-old now. But see, those things, they date a book really fast by referencing, that you were with your 3-year-old last night as you were writing this book, and the next thing you know, your 3-year-old 16, and people are reading this and they know you've got a 16-year-old. So things like that can date it, but you can still write it in a timeless way. You can say, when my son was 3, these things happened, or this was my experience, and that is okay. That works. So hopefully that makes sense. So I'm just kind of saying, before you reference Ed Sheeran or Taylor Swift or Ariana Grande, remember that, it wasn't that long ago that we were referencing Bieber and Britney Spears and Michael Jackson even. So it's just something to be aware of. I think pop culture references can be really, really fun in your book. But again, if you're trying to write something with longevity, these are just things to think about. So that's the first point. The first point was really about, writing about humanity and strategic thinking, and really the strategy and the mindset behind, the approach to what you do. And then the second thing is really avoiding those pop culture references, or those references that can go out of date. And then I have one more tip for you. But let's see what you guys are talking about. So let's see. Oh, you didn't know. I was typing and didn't know you were looking for the name of the show. And Ben has a question for later, so I'll come back to that. Angela, please remind me, or Ben, please remind me. I will come back to that. I'm just going to do point 3 and then I'll come back. Mike Hurd, that's exactly why my book is delayed. You've given me so much great info over the video series. I've had to evolve the theme. That's awesome. And COVID alters the theme too, because this is a new economy. Very, very true. That's so true. Let's see. Dale's getting ridiculed. No, it's okay, Dale. Never feel bad for chiming in with the right answers or even the wrong answers. Always welcome here. Fables. Yep, that's good. Does Book Launchers recommend one of the style guides? AP, Chicago, APA? Yes. But that's not my department. Angela would have to ask Jacqueline. But yes, we do have one style that all our editors are hired under. And we do have editors that know the other styles, but there's only certain circumstances where we would use them. But I'm honestly not that versed in those things. Sorry. Elizabeth, welcome. So good to have you here. All right. So point 3, any guesses? Anybody ready to? No, you guys won't. It'd be really hard to guess this one. So the third thing that makes a book timeless, and I spent quite a bit of time kind of researching this piece, is that you add details or layers that make your book more timeless, because they really bring the reader to the moment. They're not actually thinking about the current time period or anything like that. They're actually transported into the book. And this is really something we've talked about when we talk about memoirs, and using your story as the foundation for what you're teaching in your book, and it's story arcs. And if you think about them in the traditional 3 arc or 3 act format, the first act is the setup. So this is the inciting incident. It's the thing that sets you off on your adventure. And again, to showcase some examples of more classic examples, I would, to illustrate this to you, let's take Alice in Wonderland. So that's a pretty safe classic example that doesn't date your book, really. And so in Alice in Wonderland, Act 1, the inciting incident is her curiosity that sends her off on her adventure. And now this one, I think it probably does date a book, but it still came to mind, so I'm going to share it anyways. Alec Baldwin's speech in Glengarry Glen Ross, that was an inciting incident where he's basically saying, seller be fired, always be closing. So that's also an inciting incident. So that's Act 1, and so it's a call to adventure, or the thing that kind of leads you down the path that eventually, leads to Act 2, which is the ultimate confrontation, where everything gets intense. It's the midpoint, but it's really when everything piles up on top of each other. And so this format is classic. This creates a storyline for your book that is timeless. And these kind of challenges are timeless. We always, now more than ever, it should be obvious to everyone that we are always faced with challenges, and there's always opportunity in every challenge. And it's the character that you show when you're faced with these challenges. And that's what makes these kind of humanitarian approaches to books more timeless. And so Act 2, you're piling on those challenges and it seems insurmountable. Like you're never going to overcome this thing. And then, so giving you a real life example, this is when, the doctor says you have 2 months to live with the cancer. You just get a job and then COVID hits and now you're bankrupt or now the company's bankrupt, you've lost your job and now you can't pay back that debt that you thought you were about to pay back. You're back to square one. So those kind of things, it's like, something happened, triggers it and leads you to where you think things are getting better or, bad news just gets piled on bad news. But Act 3 is the resolution, the lead up to the resolution. And really, it's where you feel the emotion, but you also get the lessons and the stories. And so those layers make a book more timeless. And then you add in little details that transport somebody to your moment, to the story, into the book. And it's not like giving them every detail. And this is one of the things we struggle with some of our authors is they get really married to a lot of the details. They think they're really, really important. And when I say details, I'm not talking about everything that's happened to you and all those little moments. I'm talking about little details that take you to that specific moment, the important moments. I'm talking about, describing something like, it was Friday afternoon at 4:30, and in your mind, you're already visualizing the condensation on that Corona beer in the bucket waiting for you at your neighbor's house because you always have happy hour at their house Friday evenings. Or it's saying that the treehouse that you always played in as a kid was 12 steps from your back door. And, every Sunday when you were playing in the treehouse, you could smell your mom's baking because she baked cookies on Sundays. And those kind of things transport you. Little details transport you to the moment as a reader. And it takes you out of any notion that there's actually, this book is current or not. So hopefully that makes sense. If you want more examples, I can try to make some up for you. All right, just checking in on what you guys are talking about. Yep, Jacqueline. Oh, Jacqueline's in the house. Yay. Chicago Manual Style. That's it. CMOS. It's all those letters. I never know. Fantastic. Okay. And I saw Ron. Hey, the Green Wizard's in the house. So good to see you here. All right. So let's do a couple of prizes. So Angela, let's see. So for those of you who've been here, I'll do a skill testing question as your prize for the day. So what were the 3 tips I just gave you for writing a book that has longevity? So go ahead, type them in. The first one to get all 3 right will be our prize winner. And then I'm also going to head on over to the randomizer and draw from the folks that have been commenting every Tuesday and Friday. So let me just do that right now while you guys are coming up with your answers. All right, so I've headed on over to the random name picker and I've put all the names in. So I'm hitting the green button that says pick a random name. Let's see who we get today. And so for those of you who are new, everybody who comments on the day a video is released on the YouTube channel, which is every Tuesday and Friday, except coming up in July when we take a little bit of a break. I think we're going to take a break from mid-July to mid-August. And then, of course, and then there won't be videos then or live streams. But then everybody who comments on the day a video is released gets entered to win the prizes that we do during the live streams. And so this week's winner, we do 2. First winner is Erin Crowley. Yay! Thank you, Erin. You have been commenting on a very regular basis, and I'm so grateful to have you around the YouTube community. So I'm pumped that you're going to be the proud owner of a mug or a journal. So all you need to do is email us at team@booklaunchers.com and let us know what you want and make sure you include your mailing address. Some folks write us and tell us, here's my mailing address, and they don't tell us what they want. Or they say, hey, I'd love your mug or your journal. And then they don't tell us their mailing address. So we need both. All right, I'm going to pick another name in a second, but let's see if we got anybody. Let's see. Put the 3 things in one comment. Yes, please. That will make it much easier. Oh, hey, Alan, welcome. So good to hear. So good to see you. And you're going to get a recap with whoever gets them all right. So Kevin, number 2, you are missing 1. You got 2 out of 3. So that gives somebody else a hint, but you got 2 out of 3. So still waiting for the answer on the skill testing question, which was what were the 3 tips that I gave you for writing a book with longevity? So here we go. We're going to get a recap over there, and I'll go back to the random name picker and pick one more name for you folks. All right. So drum roll, please. Here we go. And the second winner of the day is Jahenders. Jahenders, Jahenders. Jahenders. I know who you are on YouTube, so thank you so much for your comments, likes, and shares. And you're the proud winner of a mug or a journal. You just need to let us know which one and email us at team@booklaunchers.com. All right, so let's see. Kevin number 2 is trying really hard. Everybody else is going, I should have taken notes. I think that's what's happening. Ayo, Stephen, nice to have you here. All right, so this was my last thing. I'm going to go back to Ben's. You're tuning in from Michigan. Hey, awesome. Okay, so where was that question from Ben there it is. New authors. Question for new authors. How should I approach long-term planning for longevity? Because I'm assuming the short-term marketing strategies will evolve over time. Long-term, are you talking about the long-term marketing planning for longevity? If you can just clarify that, Ben, that would be great. And I'll make sure you get a relevant answer to your question. Let me just see what we got here. All right, I think you guys have given up. So it's Kevin number 2. All right, so just so you guys get the recap here. So point number 1 was that to write about the humanity side or the strategic thinking side of your book. So rather than writing specific tactics, and again, for those of you just joining, I'm not saying this is how you have to write a book. I'm saying if you want to write a book that will last, 10 years or longer, people will still be reading it, it'll still be relevant, thinking about how to win friends, influence people, the power of positive thinking, the 7 habits of highly effective people. Those are books that really talk about mindset. They touch on the humanity side of book writing, of their topic. And so even if you're writing a financial investment book, if you want it to have longevity, you want to write about the thinking behind creating a great strategy, not necessarily the specific strategy itself, because the different approaches, the different tactics will change over time. Just like social media, if you're writing about social media, I think there's a high value in talking about the specific platforms today, but you also probably want to consider writing a book with longevity that talks about the mindset around creating relationships, creating engagement, creating a community. Now that stuff has staying power. So those are some of the differences to think about. So that was tip number 1. Tip number 2 was just watching your pop culture references or references to time. Those can date a book really fast. And number 3 is also just layers and details, because the more you bring in story, the more people get transported to the book, and the current time period is less relevant. And I think a lot of that, books that are popular today have done a really good job of that. And you can do it through the 3-arc or 3-act kind of story approach, as well as adding some details, really just bring people into the moment. So yeah. And Angela's doing a great recap. Yes, and Kevin number 2 wins again. He went for a long streak of not winning, and now he's won twice. So now he'll have both of the swag items. Okay, so Ben's clarifying now. I was wondering how to build long-term momentum and building off previous momentum. So thinking about that for long-term while making sure to execute short-term marketing for sales strategies. Okay, yeah. So this is going into book marketing specifically, and it's a solid way to think. And my approach to this is that in the long run, what will sell your books are kind of two primary things. Your own author platform. So always be building that platform. And by platform, for those of you who aren't familiar, I really, really want you to focus on building an email list. Social media has value, and it certainly is part of your platform, but that email list is your gold. And I've talked about this a lot before, but that email list allows you to promote your books, promote your service, promote your, promote whatever you're doing, but it also is your community. And if you change or you pivot or you grow, that list is connected with you, and it has value if you've done a good job of nurturing it. So that's number 1 for the long term. If you don't have that right now, it's hard to build quickly. So, as a company, Ben, it's worth noting that we actually have something that we're working on now, which is going to help with that. We've hired a contractor that's working with us now to build out some Google ad stuff she calls it micro funnels. So we can always talk about that later and kind of see if it's a fit. But because that is a piece. Building that platform and getting those newsletter subscribers is a challenging piece. So we're working on developing our service around that, just so you know. But so that's long term. Always be trying to come up with ways to build that author platform. And for those of you who don't know, I have a playlist on YouTube channel all about building that author platform. Short term, though, that's where you go for the big, the big spikes. Short term, look for those BookBub ads if they are appropriate. Look for those wins that will boost it, speaking engagements that will get you in front of people, get the books in the hands of everybody. Really, I think the other piece, and this is still long-term, but it also does the short-term boosts, is you're looking for those strategic relationships with people in their audience that are your ideal reader, and ideally that they don't do the same thing as you. If they're doing the same thing as you, they might promote you once as a favor to kind of build the relationship, but you're unlikely to find those longer term strategic partnerships. And that's where the other piece of the longevity is. So your own author platform, but then also the platforms of others. And so finding strategic relationships where they might be giving away a copy of your book as part of their service. I actually have quite a few real estate coaching client, or not clients, real estate coaching companies in Canada who still use my book more than Cashflow, my first book, which went out in 2013 now. They're still using that book. One of them just wrote his own book, and he's going to be putting it out soon because he wanted to give away his own book and not my book anymore. So he's worked with us to produce his own book. But that's really, if you can find those strategic partnerships where they're giving your book or promoting your book on a regular basis because it's the perfect thing for their audience, that's great long term. It's also great short term if you're finding them and they're just going to promote you once or have you speak to their audience in exchange for books or as part of a speaking fee and those things. So there's a lot of other strategies, but those things, I think, a little bit of paid promotions in the short term can go a long way, but then really getting strategic about those relationships for the long term and about building that author platform. So hopefully that helps. And certainly something we can talk about more. I was just smiling at Kevin number 2 saying I was distracted from the narrative arc answer. Stephen also, so Stephen, welcome. You're new here, so this is great. How does somebody win? So when you're live, commenting, sometimes we do a random one. And you know what, for kicks today, why don't we do a random one? We hadn't done a random one. We did 2 skill testing question ones. So when you're here live and you're commenting, then we always do a draw from those of you commenting. And then we also do skill testing ones. Sometimes it's stuff that I've put on the YouTube channel. Sometimes it's things that you just know because you've been reading our newsletter, or today I test to see who's paying attention, which we need to work on, folks. All right. So, hey, Michelle, great to have you here. So what we're going to do is we will do a random one, and it is the 26th of May. Goodness gracious. So let's go back 26 from, let's see, from Angela's comment, Mike heard laugh out loud, just a visual for everyone. So Angela, will you go back, count 26 back from your comment, and that will be today's random winner. So, Stephen, so those are the 2 ways to win when you're live. And then make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and turn your notifications on so you find out when the videos come out every Tuesday and Friday. And then you comment the day a video is released, and then you get entered to win. And then we all gather every other Tuesday and do the draws that way. So that's how you win. Sometimes we give away books of our clients when they have new releases. Now that I'm hiding in Canada from the virus for a little while, I don't have the books. All the books are getting shipped to my office in Los Angeles, so I don't have the books on hand. So I won't be doing as many of those draws because I like to show them to you when I'm doing it, but soon enough. So there you go. Sarah Ann, hey, great to see you. Marcia, great to have you here. I'm just waiting for our final winner, and then we're going to wrap things up for the day. So Angela's busy trying to figure out, and she's busy trying to figure out the count. And yeah, Kevin, I am creeping up on 20K. I am lagging so far behind our famous friend, Dale Roberts. For those of you who have not checked out Self-Publishing with Dale Roberts, head on over to his channel. Very amazing stuff. And I've got a collab video coming up. He just sent it to me this weekend. I'm going to shoot the other part of it on Thursday. So we've got some cool content coming out for you from Dale Roberts. But yeah, Dale's crushing it. I'm a little jealous, but yes, he's headed to 100K this year, and I'm just happy to have those of you who are here right now with me. It is an honor and a privilege to share my Tuesdays and Fridays with all of you. All right, so Angela, Ron Neitzel. Hey, if you need some more book launch or swag, let us know. Otherwise, you can nominate somebody because I think you've got everything. But if you don't, then go ahead and let us know who should get it in your place. But congratulations, you are a winner of our mug or our journal for the random prize today. And yeah, we heard Dale. Yes, you can keep her around as long as she's at Book Launchers, Dale. I'm keeping her. Oh yes. So Ron, congratulations. If you are still here, you can let us know if somebody else should be nominated. I don't know if you have all our swag yet. I feel like you have it all, but if you don't, hey, now you can stock up and get the final piece that you need. So yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. It was an absolute pleasure to spend another Tuesday with you. We'll do this again in 2 weeks. And of course, Friday, I have a really, really cool video coming out. I interviewed Amani Roberts, one of our clients who had a big book launch party planned, and then COVID hit. He's a DJ. He also does corporate training. So you can imagine he had a pretty cool book launch planned, and then he had to pivot last minute and do a virtual book launch. And so I got him to share his tips for what he did technology-wise, strategy-wise, what worked, what he would do differently, doing this again in the future. So Friday's video is all about doing a virtual book launch. So something I think a lot of authors are going to be figuring out over the next little while. So I'm really excited for you guys to see that on Friday. And just checking over here, I don't see Ron saying anything, so we'll let him know that he won. And if he nominates somebody else to take the prize, we'll let you know that too. All right, thanks so much for being here, everyone. Have a fantastic day. Take care. Stay safe.